The evening sky bled with shades of orange and gold as the sun slowly dipped behind the city skyline. A faint hum of traffic echoed from a distance. On a lonely bench at the bus stop sat a small boy, barely 6 years old, clutching a worn-out teddy bear to his chest. His legs trembled slightly, one of them stiff, the other weak. His striped shirt looked a size too big, and his eyes carried a silence that no child should ever know. Beside him lay a small backpack with a half-filled water bottle and a note that had already begun to wrinkle in the breeze. The note read, "I'm sorry. I can't take care of him anymore." The boy didn't know what the words meant exactly, but he knew his father's voice when he said, "Wait here, son. Daddy will be back soon." And so, he waited. Cars came and went. People boarded the bus, laughed, talked, and disappeared into the fading light. Nobody noticed the little boy sitting quietly, his small hands gripping the teddy tighter every time the wind howled. Hours passed. Streetlights blinked on one by one. That's when Iraje, a man in his mid-30s wearing a tailored navy blue suit, stepped out of his black car nearby. His face was tired, eyes heavy from another day of corporate meetings and heartless boardrooms. He was a millionaire by every definition, CEO of a luxury brand, owner of multiple companies, but somehow, happiness had long escaped him. He was about to answer a phone call when something in the corner of his eye caught his attention. A little boy, sitting alone on the bench, unmoving. Iraj frowned. He walked closer, noticing the child's trembling hands and vacant stare. "Hey, little buddy, where are your parents?" he asked softly. The boy looked up, eyes glossy. He didn't answer. He simply clutched the teddy bear closer and whispered, "Dad said he'll come back, but he's taking too long." Iraj's chest tightened. The words hit deeper than he expected. For a moment, he saw his own reflection in the boy, loneliness wrapped in silence. He crouched down beside him. "What's your name, son?" The boy hesitated, his lips quivering. "Arav," he whispered. "Do you know where your dad went?" Arav shook his head slowly. He said he'll bring food. But the buses keep coming and going. He's not here. A sharp ache settled in Iraj's heart. He glanced at the backpack, saw the note lying half-folded beside it, and picked it up. His jaw tightened as he read it. "I'm sorry. I can't take care of him anymore." For a few seconds, Iraj stood frozen, anger and disbelief fighting within him. The city lights flickered around them, but in that moment, the world felt painfully still. He looked at the boy again, so innocent, so lost. And without realizing it, he said something that would change both of their lives forever. "You're not alone anymore, Arav. I'm here now." Arav blinked, confused, unsure if he should believe a stranger's promise. But when Araj gently placed his coat around the boy's shoulders, warmth replaced fear for the first time that evening. Somewhere deep inside, destiny had just taken its first step. The night had fully fallen by the time Iraj guided little Arav toward his car. The city was quiet, the air cool, streetlights reflected off the glossy surface of the black Mercedes, and the boy hesitated before getting in. "Don't worry," Iraj said gently, opening the door for him. "I'll take you somewhere safe." "Okay." Arav nodded slowly, still hugging his teddy bear. The moment the car began to move, his tiny voice broke the silence. "Are you a police uncle?" Iraj smiled faintly. "No, I'm just someone who didn't want to leave you alone." The boy's eyes drifted to the window, where raindrops began to form like tiny mirrors reflecting the city lights. "Dad said, rich people don't care about poor kids." Iraj's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Maybe your dad was wrong," he replied softly. At his penthouse, the automatic doors slid open to reveal a world Arav had never seen before, tall glass walls overlooking the skyline, soft carpets, and warm golden lights. The boy's eyes widened, but he didn't let go of the teddy. "Whoa," he whispered. "You live in the sky." Iraj chuckled. "Something like that." He led him to the guest room, a cozy space with a plush bed and a big window showing the moonlit city below. He fetched some warm milk and placed it on the table beside him. Arav looked hesitant. "I'm not allowed to sleep in big beds," he murmured. "Tonight, you can," Iraj said with a kind smile. "You deserve to." For the first time, the boy smiled back, shy but genuine. Later that night, as Iraj stood by the window, staring into the city's glittering abyss, something inside him began to stir. He remembered his own childhood, the echo of his father's voice. The endless days of loneliness after being sent to boarding school because his father was too busy running the business empire. He had grown up with money but without warmth. Now, in front of him slept a boy abandoned for the opposite reason, because his father had none. The irony hit him hard. The next morning, Arav woke up to the smell of pancakes and scrambled eggs. He rubbed his eyes and saw Araj in an apron, awkwardly flipping a pancake with too much enthusiasm. "Are you a chef now?" Arav giggled. Iraj laughed, really laughed, something he hadn't done in years. "Trying to be one," he said. The boy sat at the table, devouring breakfast with delight. Between bites, he looked up and asked, "Will my dad come back today?" The question silenced the room. Iraj's smile faded, but he answered softly, "If he doesn't, I'll find him for you." Arav nodded. though his small eyes carried something unspoken, a quiet understanding that his father might never return. Days turned into weeks. Arav's laughter began to fill the vast emptiness of Yuraj's mansion. The boy drew pictures on the glass walls using washable markers, leaving doodles of stars, buses, and smiling faces. He called Yuraj Uncle Yor, and somehow, every time the boy said it, Yuraj felt something he hadn't felt in years. Family. But the more attached he became, the more restless he grew at night. He wanted answers. Who could abandon a child like this? And why? So one evening, after tucking Arav into bed, he picked up the crumpled note again. This time, he noticed something written faintly on the back corner, a partial address. Yuraj's eyes narrowed. He grabbed his car keys. If there's someone out there who thought they could just walk away from that child, he muttered. They're about to meet me. As the city lights blurred past his windshield. One thing was clear. The story that began at a lonely bus stop was far from over. The city slept in silence, but Yuraj's mind was anything but quiet. The faint address scribbled on the back of the note led him to an old part of town, narrow streets, flickering lamps, and crumbling buildings whispering stories of forgotten lives. He parked his car outside a broken gate, where an old signboard read Gopal Singh, mechanic. The smell of oil and rust filled the air as he stepped inside the dim workshop. A man in his 40s sat slumped in a chair, staring at an empty bottle of cheap liquor. His face was rough, eyes sunken, clothes covered in grease. Yuraj recognized him instantly from the faded picture he had seen on Arav's small drawing, a man holding a tiny boy in his arms, smiling. He was the father, Gopal Singh. Yuraj's deep voice echoed through the empty garage. The man looked up slowly, blinking as if trying to recognize who stood before him. Yeah, who's asking? I'm the man who found your son, Yuraj replied coldly. At a bus stop. Alone, hungry, scared. Gopal's expression changed. First shock, then guilt, and finally, anger. He was better off without me, he stammered. You don't know what it's like. His mother died giving birth to him. The hospital bills. The therapy. His leg, God knows I tried. But I couldn't feed him anymore. Yuraj's jaw tightened. So, you abandoned him. Left a note like he was a broken machine. Gopal slammed his fist on the table. You think I wanted to? He shouted, his voice cracking. I watched him suffer every night. I had nothing left, no money, no home, no job. I thought someone better, someone richer, would find him and save him. Maybe I was right. There was silence. Only the ticking of a wall clock filled the space between them. Yuraj stepped closer, his tone softer now. You could have asked for help. Gopal laughed bitterly. Help from who? People step over you when you're poor. You rich people don't care. Yuraj's voice broke slightly. Maybe you've met the wrong kind of rich. He pulled out a photograph from his wallet, a younger version of himself with his late mother. I grew up alone too. My father was rich but never around. Money couldn't hug me when I cried. It couldn't tell me stories before bed. He paused. Arav doesn't need a perfect father. He just needs one who stays. Gopal's shoulders trembled. His eyes filled with tears for the first time in years. Does he hate me? Yuraj hesitated. He still waits for you. Every day he asks if you're coming back. That broke him. The man who thought he had no tears left fell to his knees, hands covering his face. I'm a monster, he whispered. I didn't deserve that boy. Yuraj knelt beside him. Then prove it. Be better. Come with me. But Gopal shook his head. No, he's happy now, isn't he? He's eating well, sleeping warm. Don't take that away from him. I'll just ruin it again. Yuraj sighed. You don't get to decide that anymore. Arav deserves the truth, not another lie. He left his card on the table. I'll come back tomorrow. Be ready. As he walked away, Gopal stared at the name on the card. Yuraj Malhotra, a name he recognized from every TV commercial, every newspaper headline. The billionaire philanthropist who built hospitals for orphans. He whispered to himself, my son was found. By an angel in disguise. Meanwhile, back at the penthouse, Arav sat by the window, waiting. Raindrops painted the glass again, tracing the reflection of a small boy with a half smile. When Yuraj returned late at night, he found him asleep on the couch, the teddy bear resting against his chest, a drawing on the table beside him. It was a picture of two figures, one tall, one small, holding hands under a bus stop sign, with a bright sun above them. Below it, in shaky letters, was written, Me and Uncle Yoru, my family. Yuraj's heart ached as he looked at it. He brushed the boy's hair softly and whispered, You already have one family, Arav. But maybe it's time we bring the other back too. The next morning Arav woke to find Yuraj sitting beside him with a gentle smile. Get ready, champ, we're going for a little drive today, where Arav asked, rubbing his eyes, to meet someone who loves you more than he knows. The boy frowned, confused. My dad? Yuraj nodded slowly. Yes, your dad. Arav's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know whether to be happy or scared. The last memory of his father was cold and painful. The bus stop, the waiting, the tears. But deep inside, he still missed him. As they drove through the city, Arav kept staring out of the window. his tiny hands trembling slightly. Arav spoke softly. No matter what happens today, remember this, you are special. Arav, you are loved. When they reached the old workshop, Arav froze. The smell of oil, the rusty tools, the faint memories, everything came flooding back. And then, from the doorway, Gopal appeared. His eyes red, his hands shaking. Arav whispered, "Dad." The man's lips trembled. "Arav, my son." The boy stepped closer, still unsure. Gopal fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I was weak. I left you when you needed me most. I'll never forgive myself." Arav looked at him for a long moment, then held out his teddy bear. "You forgot this," he said softly. That was it. The wall between them broke. Gopal pulled him into a tight embrace, crying like a child himself. Yuraj stood silently by the door, watching the reunion, bittersweet, raw, and real. He knew this was the moment that would define both their lives. But as they embraced, something inside Yuraj whispered that this was not the end. There was something more, something he still didn't know. And soon, he would discover a truth that would shake everything he believed about fate, love, and the bond between a father and a son. The rain fell steadily that evening as Yuraj sat alone in his office, staring at the city lights that shimmered below his high-rise tower. The reunion between Arav and his father had left him strangely unsettled. He should have felt peace, but something about Gopal's story didn't add up. He replayed their conversation in his mind, the hesitation, the guilt, the half-answer, and most of all, one phrase Gopal had muttered before they parted. "You wouldn't understand. Your company took everything from me." At the time, Yuraj had ignored it. But now, those words echoed like a riddle that refused to fade. He turned to his assistant, Mira, and said, "Pull up all records related to Gopal Singh, mechanic, mid-40s, from the East District. I want to know everything. Where he worked, what happened to him, everything." Mira hesitated. "Right away, sir." Within hours, the truth began to unravel. Gopal Singh had once worked at a small auto parts factory, a supplier under Malhotra Industries, the very company Yuraj had inherited from his late father. 5 years ago, the factory was shut down due to cost-cutting measures. Hundreds of workers were dismissed without compensation. Among them was Gopal Singh. Yuraj leaned back in disbelief, eyes darkening as the report glowed on his laptop screen. The reason Gopal lost everything wasn't just fate, it was his own company. His father's decision, his legacy, and indirectly, he was the reason a desperate man abandoned his disabled son at a bus stop. He shut the laptop slowly, his breath heavy. "God, what have I done?" That night, he couldn't sleep. He walked into Arav's room quietly. The boy was fast asleep, a gentle smile on his face, clutching the teddy bear like a guardian angel. Yuraj sat beside him and whispered, "You don't know it yet, little one, but our stories are more connected than either of us imagined." He brushed the boy's hair softly and walked out, determination burning in his chest. The next morning, he visited Gopal again, this time not as a millionaire, but as a man seeking forgiveness. The workshop looked emptier than before. The tools were gone, the shelves half bare. Gopal was sitting at the same table, but this time, his eyes carried something else, a quiet acceptance. "You came back," Gopal said, surprised. "I had to," Yuraj replied. "I found out the truth." Gopal's face hardened. "You know then, your father's company, they closed the plant. My job, my savings, everything vanished. My wife's treatment stopped. She died in pain, and I couldn't even afford Arav's therapy." Tears rolled down his cheeks. "I wanted to fight, but who fights billionaires? Who listens to men like me?" Yuraj's voice was soft but filled with guilt. "You're right, my family's wealth came from decisions that destroyed others. I can't undo what my father did, but I can make it right." Gopal looked up, confused. "I want to rebuild that factory," Yuraj continued. "Hire back every worker we left behind. Give you your job, your pride, your life back. And most of all give Arav the care he deserves. His medical treatment, therapy, school, everything. On me." Gopal stared at him, speechless. Why would you do that for me?" "Because I owe you," Yuraj said simply. "And because your son taught me what it means to love without reason." A week later, the headlines flooded every media outlet. Billionaire CEO reopens old factory, promises jobs and justice. But for Yuraj, it wasn't about publicity. It was about redemption. One afternoon, Arav walked into Yuraj's study holding a small box. "Uncle Yoru, look what I found." Inside was a silver keychain, an old company logo of Malhotra Industries. It was rusted, but on the back, engraved faintly, were the words, "For my best mechanic, Gopal Singh." The sun rose gently over the city that once symbolized pain and now whispered hope. It had been 3 months since the factory reopened. Workers returned, machines hummed again, and life began to move forward. Arav was doing well in his therapy, learning to walk more confidently with his leg brace. Every step he took filled Yuraj with quiet pride. The boy had become his light, his reason to smile. Gopal too had changed. He no longer carried the smell of alcohol or defeat. His hands, once trembling, now built dreams again, fixing cars, mentoring young workers, and rebuilding the life he thought he had lost forever. For the first time in years, they all felt whole. But life, as it often does, had one more test waiting. The storm, one late evening. Dark clouds rolled over the city. A thunderstorm hit harder than expected. Yuraj and Arav were returning home after therapy when the rain began to pour. The driver slowed, visibility dropping. Uncle Yoru Arav said softly from the back seat, "Will my dad come home soon?" "Yes." Yuraj smiled. "He said he'd make your favorite dinner tonight." But as the car turned toward the main road, the headlights caught something terrifying. A truck skidding on the slick street, losing control. There was a deafening crash. Glass shattered. Everything went black. The hospital when Yuraj opened his eyes. The world was white and blurry. Machines beeped around him. His arm was bandaged, head throbbing. The first word he whispered was, "Arav." Mira, his assistant, rushed in. "Sir, you're okay. Arav is in the next room. Minor injuries, just a few bruises." He let out a shaky breath of relief. "Thank God." Then his voice trembled, and the driver. Mira hesitated. "He didn't make it." Yuraj closed his eyes. A single tear escaped. Hours later, as rain continued outside, Yuraj limped to Arav's room. The boy sat on the bed, holding his teddy bear, the same one from that bus stop long ago. "Uncle Yoru," he said, his voice small but strong, "you protected me again." Yuraj smiled weakly, kneeling beside him. "That's what family does, champ." Arav touched his cheek gently. "Does this mean God sent you to me?" Yuraj's voice broke. "Maybe he sent us to each other." The letter. A few days later, Gopal arrived at the hospital, rushing in with tears in his eyes. He hugged Arav tightly, whispering prayers of gratitude. Then he turned to Yuraj. "I can never repay what you've done. You gave us everything, food, home, dignity. You gave me my son back." Yuraj shook his head. "No, Gopal Arav gave me my soul back." They shared a quiet laugh, the kind that comes after surviving something that could have ended everything. When Yuraj was discharged, he returned home with Arav. On his desk, Mira had left an envelope marked with his late father's handwriting. The title read, "To my son, when you're ready to understand." Hands trembling, he opened it. "Araj, I know I've made decisions that hurt others. I chose wealth over people, power over kindness. I lost your mother and your childhood because of my pride. One day, you'll meet someone who will teach you what true success means, not by earning millions, but by saving one heart. When that day comes, you'll finally become the man I couldn't be." Tears blurred the ink as Yuraj read the final line. "Maybe my greatest redemption will come through you." He looked toward the living room, where Arav was laughing with his father. And in that moment, Yuraj knew his father had been right. The new beginning, months later, the same bus stop where Arav was abandoned became something else entirely. A large blue signboard now stood there. The Arav Foundation for Abandoned Children. Founded by Yuraj Malhotra and Gopal Singh, the foundation became a home for children who had no one, a place where no child would ever wait alone again. On Inauguration Day, Arav stood proudly beside Yuraj, now walking with confidence, his smile radiant. "Uncle Yoru," he said, tugging at his sleeve, "you think Dad will be proud of me?" Yuraj knelt down, eyes shining. "He already is, and so am I." Arav hugged him tightly. "You're my hero." Yuraj hugged him back, whispering, "No, Arav, you're mine." The camera of fate panned outward, the city bathed in golden sunlight, the foundation bustling with laughter and life. A bus stopped nearby, but this time, no one waited alone. Love had filled the space where pain once lived, and for the first time, all three souls, the man who lost everything, the boy who was left behind, and the millionaire who found purpose, stood together, not as strangers, but as family. The end.